brightness.
I have a bad feeling about this. This area just doesn't feel right. I hear something. Freeze!
Pew, pew, pew.
Got one! Did you see that shot? I smell an ambush.
Pew, pew.
Got another one! Ooh, something died down here.
Pew, pew.
End of the line for you. This place is a lot bigger than I thought. This is as far as I go.
The Holosun AEMS. I'm really glad the Holosun went away from their numerical system because it gets a little confusing. This thing is packed with features. As you've seen, it's got clear flip-down caps front and rear. They do not impede the image whatsoever. And it's also got all of the Holosun's standard features. The illumination on this thing gets so dark it's invisible to the naked eye, and it gets more than bright enough for any sort of environment. If you press and hold the up button, it will go into automatic brightness setting, as you can see here. Whereas when I cover it, it gets darker, and when I put a flashlight over it, it gets brighter. The system works very well, even though I typically run it in manual mode, because I think it runs one brightness setting a little bit too dark for my liking, personally. If you press and hold the up arrow again, it shuts that system off and goes back to manual. Press and hold the down button, and it'll cycle through your different reticles. You have a dot with a circle, or just the circle. This is really, really cool, and it's great that Holosun offers it. It's one that a lot of other manufacturers don't. The one last feature we're going to take a look at is its auto shut-off mode and its shake awake. So what you do is you press and hold the up button for about 10 seconds. It'll then go to full brightness, and then it's going to flash for how long you want it to be on before it shuts off. There's 4 settings. I believe it goes down to as low as 10 minutes and up to a couple hours. And again, this thing works extremely well, albeit it might be a little bit too sensitive. All you have to do is think about touching this thing and it goes off. But if you have this in a safe, you have nothing to worry about. As good as this thing is shaping up to be, it does have one minor issue. And that is it does have distortion to the glass from the top part of the reticle and up. Even to the far extremes and the sides, it does have a little bit of fisheye to it. And again, this is very, very minor. In fact, it's the only negative I can give to this thing, with the exception of Holosun doesn't include a low mount with it, or even have a low mount, but we'll talk on that soon. Optically, this thing is fantastic as far as tint to the glass goes, because there is none, and I'm so glad they did that, because as you're about to see, it's a great departure away from the 512. However, as you'll see now, the 512 does have some tint, but it's a very flat image. It does have some slight parallax shift, so as you move it around side to side, it will start to move the image that you're seeing through it, but it's still a flat image. Whereas with the AEMS, you can do that, and you could see it moving around itself like a fisheye. So that's basically the only negative I can have towards this thing so far. For you, it might not be a bother whatsoever. For me, it's a bit annoying because it pulls me out of the experience. But here's a much better representation of what I'm trying to illustrate. The 512 with its flat image, once you go past the power lines line up from one side to the other straight through. Whereas with the AEMS, if you're looking from the outside of the body to the inside top part of the glass, you're going to see the line come in after the fact. And it's very, very minimal here, but again, it is a notice basically all the time. When we put a magnifier behind this, it's not going to be as noticeable. However, it does seem to have the typical Holosun trope of instead of a nice sharp center dot, it's a little bit more of a rugby ball shape. Now, this being red might lend itself to being a little bit better looking than the gold dot here, for example, but even with the green illumination of the 510 that I had, the 512, and now the AEMS, they're all roughly the same, and there's nothing you can really do to get out of that. As far as the image through both of these, you can easily see the tint from the 512 much more than the lack thereof tint of the AEMS, which, like I said earlier, is a vast improvement. Now, I only had the 512 to compare against this thing just to give you guys an idea of how this thing is going to look and perform versus its older brother. Now, unlike its older brother, this thing comes in nearly 3 ounces lighter, and that is including this tall mount. So with a lower mount or with an aftermarket ADM or LaRue mount, you could expect this thing to come in at probably 5 ounces or less. The 512 by comparison is 8.3 ounces, so that is a huge weight savings. The only real problem is no one offers a low mount as of yet, but I can see this thing already being very popular in the aftermarket. There you go. There is basically no image distortion or change with the caps up or down. They absolutely hit the nail on the head, and yes, they are removable if you choose to not have them, but why wouldn't you? They're going to protect your glass from dirt and debris and smudging, and they flip right out of the way. And they don't even change anything. It's excellent. I am, of course, using my Primary Arms Gen 4 LER3X magnifier, and again, this is one of my go-tos, considering it's as cheap as it is, and it's served me fairly well. Though I am looking to get the new HM3XT, the titanium version of the standard HM3X, and if that's as good as I hope it is, then it's going to be my new standard, and more on that later. Here, you can see that the glass not only distorts the image, but also the reticle. As we move about, having the reticle go from top to bottom, left to right, in and out, it does get affected by the front glass. The back glass on this is completely flat, the front is domed. The 512 was also domed, but yet, again, the 512 didn't have the same issues as this. Another thing to mention is how big the window is inside the small body. The field of view through it is excellent, and you can't ask for much more than that. You have just enough of a border around the sides and the top to make it feel like it's going to be bulletproof. Another thing I'm bound to have questions on is, can you see the emitter? And the answer is yes, and then some. We are looking through it from the back through the correct orientation. You can clearly see it's on. And when we look at it from the front, there's the emitter, albeit this is slightly lower settings, and there are 2 of the reticles. Now, you might be saying, oh, well, maybe because it's from the flip caps. Well, one of them is from the flip caps. The other one's always imprinted on the front glass. So no matter what, you're always going to have the emitter being shown, and more than likely, for having the proper brightness settings, you're probably going to be able to see a little bit of that reticle from the front as well. And that's just something that you might want to, keep in mind. Into my final thoughts as we walk through the woods. What do we have? We have a very small, very lightweight, very smartly laid out, very well made feeling Holosun product. But it goes more than just being a Holosun product. It's very good for just being a red dot or a reflex. Now, yes, it does have its 2 minor quirks. It does have the distortion, which for many of you won't be a bother, and you can see the emitter from the front and some of the reticle. Again, for many of you, might not be a bother. But for others of you out there, it might certainly be a thing that you have to consider. Do I think that Holosun's going to roll out a Gen 2 one of these anytime soon? Probably not. I think this is a much better layout than the original 509T was. If you disagree with me, I'm sorry to hear that. But then why did they bring out a Gen 2 that fixed a lot of the issues that I thought the 509 had from the beginning? Wonders will never cease. Anyway, I'm getting off topic. This thing right now comes in for $400. And for that price, I think it's pretty damn good, despite its quirks. Do I foresee this thing coming down in price in the future? Absolutely. If you're not going to be able to find this on sale for low to mid 300s in a couple of months, I'd eat my own shirt. I just hope it's edible. But I do think this thing is going to have a very strong aftermarket with its modularity, its weight, and its size. It's just a really good package. If you're looking to spend $400, I think it's something you should really consider. However, if you're looking to spend a little bit less money, there's nothing wrong with the 510 or the 512 if you want to keep it in the Holosun family. Now, if you are looking for a closed emitter like this and you want to bump it up to the next level, if you're okay with buying used, you can find Gen 2 UH1s for around $400. And for that price point, if you're not looking for all the features the Holosun has or the size or the weight, the Gen 2 UH1 is an absolute incredible piece of equipment. It's American made, it's got a UK reticle, and Vortex's incredible warranty. Or if you're looking to bump it up a little bit more, you can find EOTechs in the $500 price range or so, again, used. These are, of course, just some options for you out there. I'm just spitballing here. Ultimately, you have to decide what's best for you. And on that note, thank you very much for watching, and as always, see you again next time. And a very huge thank you to all of my Patreon providers. Without you, this wouldn't be possible. If you'd like to help support the channel but don't want to join my Patreon, I completely understand. But you can still help support by using my affiliate links in the description below. Thanks again for watching.